BeakerBeat.
It's Monday, August 22nd, 2011. In this week's BeakerBeat, Pfizer battles to protect its little blue pill and the big green it produces. Can they hold off the knockoffs?
These go to 11.
Plus, a top 10 list that goes to 11, and it's not the amp from Spinal Tap. See what it is? And Cheech and Chong smoked it to feel good. Now scientists hope to help others do the same, without lighting up. All that and more in this week's edition of BeakerBeat. Brought to you by Allergan. To learn more about Allergan, visit their company webpage on Beaker.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for tuning in. Here's this week's top story.
In what could become a billion-dollar decision, a federal court has agreed with Pfizer's claim that one of its Viagra patents doesn't expire until October 2019. The decision protects Pfizer's $1 billion a year in U.S. Viagra sales. The patent case was directly aimed at Teva Pharma, who was hoping to move forward with its generic copy of the blockbuster ED drug next year after one of Pfizer's core patents expired. According to the judge in the case, quote, Teva has not shown by clear and convincing evidence that the patent is invalid. So, no fun with a little blue pill knockoff for Teva anytime soon. Consider the impact 7 more years of exclusivity will have on Pfizer's bottom line. One analyst tells the Wall Street Journal that extended exclusivity could raise the company's earnings by 3% annually between 2013 and 2018. As you know, Pfizer will need that boost as it faces generic competition for Lipitor, the world's best-selling drug, in the coming years. Now, Teva can appeal the decision but has not released its future plans for the case. Other generic drug companies are also challenging the same patent targeted by Teva, but seeing as how they don't have the deep pockets of Teva to pay the legal fees, it's unlikely they'll have any luck.
So tell us what you think about this story or any story that you see in today's show. Very simple. Click on the orange button below me, a box will pop up. Type in your comments, send it to me. I promise I'll read and respond to every one of them.
And when you're done watching BeakerBeat, check out Beaker's blog and find out how Novartis and other big pharma players are preparing for the impending patent cliff. Plus, Allergan's CEO talks about his company's earnings and the future. Those stories and more on Beaker's blog.
You know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
Apparently, the medical device industry also goes to 11. Just recently, the blog 24/7 Wall Street released the top 11 most implanted medical devices. On a yearly basis, medical device companies across the world bring in over $200 billion in revenue. Over $85 billion of that is in the U.S. alone. And a large portion of that money pie is for implanted devices. Here then is the list in order of frequency of most popular implanted devices. They run the gamut from eye lenses and ear tubes to pacemakers, breast implants, and defibrillators. However, none of them will help you play the guitar well enough to create an epic rock band.
You can go and have a bite. No, you'll still be hearing that one.
Yeah.
Time for some quick hits now, and the FDA is making headlines again.
A GAO report has determined the FDA hasn't routinely analyzed recall data to determine whether there are systemic problems underlying trends in device recalls. The report claims that from 2005 to 2009, device makers initiated 3,500 medical device recalls. 83% of them were Class 2, which can carry a moderate health risk. The GAO says the FDA is missing out on using the information to address the risks presented by unsafe devices and recommends the FDA take a more proactive approach to its oversight. Just when you thought it was over, another recall from J&J's McNeil Consumer Healthcare Unit. The company is pulling 2.5 million packages of Tylenol Cold Multi-Symptom Nighttime Rapid Release Gel Caps, made either at the now-closed Fort Washington, Pennsylvania plant or at the other problem facility in Puerto Rico. Now, this recall is the 5th by McNeil this year, and J&J units also recalled some prescription drugs, Risperdal and Persista, and several other products to boot. J&J has lost hundreds of millions of dollars in sales from the McNeil recalls. The FDA has given an early approval for Roche's new melanoma drug Zelboraf and the diagnostic test that targets it. The drug works on about half of metastatic melanoma cases. Priced at $56,000 for 6 months of treatment, it's under half the price of BMS's brand new melanoma treatment Yervoy. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. Analysts peg peak sales of Zelboraf at between $700 and $900 million. As we have been reporting for some time, various governments are trying to save money by slashing prices of prescription drugs. Just recently, China joined the fray, and now South Korea is jumping on the bandwagon. The South Korean Health Ministry aims to save about $1.5 billion in insurance payouts. The cuts won't affect branded meds that are still on patent, but when they fall off the cliff, prices will be capped at about half of the pre-expiration price. Korean drug makers are obviously not happy, and pharma CEOs and employees are protesting the new price cuts, even threatening legal action. We wish them the best of luck with that. Researchers in the U.S. are worried about cuts in science funding, but they're not the only ones. Across the pond in the UK, scientists are writing to the Prime Minister to warn of the possible dangers of cutting the science budget there. More than 100 senior chemists, including 6 Nobel laureates, sent a letter to Prime Minister David Cameron saying the proposed cuts would undermine their work and damage the UK economy. In particular, the cuts would slow down development of new medicines and agrochemicals for food production, as well as force young researchers to find jobs overseas. If AstraZeneca thought getting FDA approval for its anti-clotting drug Brilinta was tough, they may have an even bigger hurdle ahead of them in their attempt to outsell rival Plavix. A new survey of doctors reveals that only half were even aware that Brilinta was approved, and most won't switch patients from Plavix, which is the #2 best-selling drug in the world. Forest Labs will buy back $350 million in common stock from Morgan Stanley. That's about 3.2% of the company's market value. Also, Forest Labs was able to rebuff investor Carl Icahn and his plan to get 4 of his buddies on the board. Speaking of Icahn, some drug makers must be jumping for joy with the activist investor's latest portfolio update. Icahn appears to have sold out of Biogen IDEC, at which he forced 2 proxy fights, as well as Amgen and Regeneron Pharma. A bipartisan House group is pushing tax benefits for biotech, pharma, and medical device companies. According to Bloomberg, the legislation, as currently envisioned, would offer life sciences businesses a doubling of credit to 40% for the first $150 million of research. Or they would have the opportunity to bring to the U.S. as much as $150 million annually in overseas profits at a tax rate of just 5.25%, on the condition the money is channeled into further research. Not everyone likes this idea. Citizens for Tax Justice labeled the proposal, quote, a wasteful subsidy to business, saying the benefits would pay for research that would be done anyway.
Finally, our last story of the week, and hopefully you'll find this one as interesting as we did.
Some beef jerky, some peanut butter, get some Haagen-Dazs ice cream bars, a whole lot of hot, make sure chocolate.
Startup company Medicinal Genomics announced it has a draft assembly of the marijuana genome and an unbelievable case of the munchies.
Graham crackers. Graham crackers is the marshmallows, the little marshmallows, and little chocolate bars, and we'll make some s'mores.
Medicinal Genome's dealer, top dog Kevin McKernan, who was previously at Life Technologies and worked on the Human Genome Project, said his company's goal is to allow researchers to find ways to maximize the cannabis plant's therapeutic benefits and minimize its psychoactive effects. I wonder if that includes craving potato chips.
Pizzas, we need 2 big pizzas, man. Everything on them.
The pot samples were prepared for sequencing at a lab in Amsterdam. Of course they were. Now, one scientist from Baylor College of Medicine added, quote, this is not really about marijuana, it's about pharmacology. Right. Not everyone thinks this is necessary, however. A professor of medicine at UC San Francisco, who has done research into medical cannabis, said scientists have been able to study the plant without knowing the genome. He says, quote, we know what the active ingredients of the plant are already. You don't need the genome, you need the plant, end quote. That is something both scientists and stoners can agree upon.
And Funyuns.
That's it.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Sit, Beaker. Sit. Good dog.